Hello, welcome to the GFM Talks. I'm Adele Deasy and I've been invited to talk with you today about the chimp paradox. The ideas for this talk come from this book, which is by Professor Steve Peters. I've had the privilege of listening to Professor Peters speak in person about the chimp paradox, and I'm going to say it was a real critical moment in my profession, actually in my personal life. The ideas that are shared and looked at in this book are incredible. Lots of people have come across the chimp paradox, definitely in training. And from that, I hear people say, oh, I've had it up to here with the chimp paradox, or, oh, I've already done it, I've heard it. I'd really like to urge you today to re-engage with it and listen to this talk, which is only 15 minutes long, to just rekindle a few of those ideas if it's new to you, or if you've heard it a while ago and it was maybe in a different context. After this talk, if the ideas do resonate with you at all, I'd really like to recommend the podcast, which is called Diary of a CEO. And it's a 1-hour podcast, and they talk to Professor Steve Peters, and he really extends these ideas, and it's goes beyond the key facts that I'm going to give you in this talk and moves into self-development and life coaching. So Professor Steve Peters is a world-renowned psychiatrist. He's actually not in the field of education at all. He is in health and then went on to work with the highest level of sports people. And that's where his work has come from. And that's where he uses his model. In short, he says that in our brain, we've got three main areas. We've got the front bit, the top bit, and the middle bit. The front bit is what he refers to as our human system. It works at a speed of ×1, and it is to do with reasoning. The top bit, our computer, isn't capable of thought, but it stores all of our information and our automated tasks. This computer works at a speed of ×20 compared to the human, so really, really quickly. And then in the middle, we have our chimp, the chimp area of our brain, and this works at ×5. And the chimp area of our brain is the area which deals with emotion. Now, for us to make the best decisions we can, all three areas need to work together. They need to talk together, communicate together, refer to each other to make a great decision. The talk today is about how you manage this system, how you manage your chimp, because actually your chimp can be your best friend. But it's really driven by different things to your human. Your human is driven by honesty, by compassion, by conscious effort, self-control, sense of purpose, achievement. So your human really loves that 5-year plan, that short-term, long-term goal. It's rational and it thinks things through. Your chimp, however, is driven by food, shelter, territory, ego, the self, definitely driven by power. It aims for security. It's driven by sex, by parental instinct. And the chimp wants to survive. These two areas are really conflicting. And don't forget what I said just now, that the human works at a speed of ×1 and a chimp works at ×5. So your chimp has already got there before your human's got a chance. Your chimp is emotional. It's a machine that thinks independently from you, but it is neither good nor bad. It's a chimp. We all have one. Your chimp is your best friend that means well. It wants you to survive. But in doing that, often our human doesn't agree with how it acts or what it does. You can't arm wrestle it. It's quicker, it's stronger, it's faster than your human will ever be. But actually, because your chimp runs on emotion, your chimp is funny, it runs with a bit of intuition, it reads body language. So it's got all of these skills that are really, really valuable. But it's irrational. It's unpredictable. And sometimes you have to deal with its emotion without ever understanding it. If you're doubting at the moment what I mean, and I haven't got a chimp and I haven't seen anyone with a chimp, the place where we define it is when we're driving a car. We drive a car and we define it, the chimp, then as road rage. When we are screaming and shouting out of the window because somebody hasn't pulled away quick enough at a roundabout, or somebody didn't let you into a junction. And we can be taken over by a feeling. And that feeling is so strong that it takes over our behaviors. And sometimes people are really not recognizable anymore once they've got into a car. All of these ideas and these models are fine, but I want to bring this into education. I want to bring this into the classroom and say, all of the time, we have to learn to manage our chimp, not anybody else's, but we recognize everyone else has got one, right? So in a classroom, something happens, somebody shouts, and your chimp immediately decides what's to be done. Now, if your human agrees with what needs to be done, eventually when it catches up on the thought process, cool beans, we're fine, it can get on with it. But if your human disagrees and what your chimp is wanting to do is irrational or too emotional or is going to get you into trouble, somehow your human has to re-engage itself and give your chimp a talking to. The only way that can happen is if you pause, if you learn that when you have a feeling, I describe it as a hot feeling, when my chimp has definitely been poked and prodded and I'm ready to feel all offended by something that's gone on, or I've had some feedback that I don't like, or I think I'm being disrespected in some way, or I see unkindness, unfairness, injustice. They're the things that really evoke my chimp. And I get a feeling, and I know because of experience that actually I have to pause and wait for my human to catch up and rationalize why my chimp is wanting to behave in the way it is. In a classroom, we're dealing with students, maybe other adults. And if something happens that evokes your chimp, then the conversation you're about to have might be your chimp ready to have a conversation with a child, and your tone, your manner, your body language has already evoked the child's chimp. So chimp to chimp, you're trying to have a conversation. It's just going to go nowhere. In another scenario, we can talk to children. This often happens, interestingly, when we ask them to come back later, when something's been unproductive and we've asked them to come back at the end of a day or the end of a lesson at lunchtime and talk things through. They talk things through and you think, on a one-to-one, everything's fine. That's because your chimp has calmed down and has had space. Their chimp has calmed down and has had space. And so we're speaking on human to human. If we're speaking on human to human, all of a sudden, our conversations can be rational, we can be reflective, and we can make a plan. We're not offended, and we've managed that emotion that was previously bubbling away. So in a classroom, it can be chimp to chimp. It can be human to human, or of course, one of you can be in human mode and one of you can be in chimp mode. Often that can happen when a child arrives at a classroom and you have no idea what's gone on at free time before that, or on the way to school, or in a lesson before that. And they've come in, thrown a bag, sat down with a bit of a kerfuffle, or you've asked them to do a task and someone's laughed at their answer. It's evoked a chimp. You're blissfully unaware of it, You then go to speak to the child and they flare up. You take it personally, your chimp comes out, you're not going to be spoken to like that. And all of a sudden, this has all spiraled way, way out of control. So the reason why I find this training so useful is because it gives us a model, which I find really useful, to be aware of what's going on. Okay, so let's just take it from now that we do have a chimp. It is an emotional beast and it is ready to fight to keep you alive and keep your survival going and protect your ego and not make you look silly and all of those things. So how do we go about managing that? Well, Professor Steve Peters suggests 4 ways. The first one is nurture. He says that your chimp can be spoken to and calmed down, essentially. Interestingly, he says talking out loud sometimes does that. Obviously, let's be careful where we do that. But he suggests getting up in the morning, sitting on the edge of your bed and speaking out loud about what your intentions are for the day. The reason why that's become so popular is because out loud, it's your chimp that's emotionally speaking and your human is able to rationalize what's going on and how you're feeling and what you're going to turn that into. So the first thing he says to do is nurture your chimp. Seek out external praise. Seek out recognition if that is important to your chimp from people that matter to you. And that's an okay thing to do. The second thing he suggests to do is really common to us, and it's about exercising your chimp. It's about getting it off your chest, allowing your chimp to express emotion, calms it down, and then it's able to listen to your human side, reflect and be rational. So when something's happened, we've got a common language now that we can say, I know it's my chimp, but I just have to say, this has annoyed me. This is frustrating me. I don't like when you do this. I don't like how the business does that. And you can exercise it. Then it becomes rational. Professor Peters talks about a workshop that he runs for businesses, and he shares that one of the exercises he does is to get everyone in the room to talk out loud without judgment about what they want to be, how they want to be, what they want their professional life to look like, what decisions they think they should make. And after speaking it out loud, often when he says, how do you feel about that? They often say, I think actually it's ridiculous. Now I've heard it out loud. So it's a really important exercise for us to do rather than harboring things. The next bit I find much trickier. It's about boxing your chimp. So after you've got it all off your chest, what do you do? Well, you've got it off your chest. You've finished exercising it. You've had a chance to deal with it in a really measured way. So now we can use truth and facts and logic to calm the chimp down. So now we box it. Done. Not never to be revisited, hidden away as some dark corner, not that at all. But actually, it's something where we say, okay, I can see the logic. I can see why I reacted. I can see why they did that. I can see what this decision is. So I'm going to move forward. What's the alternative? Take the box with you, go and find someone else that hasn't heard your story yet. It's not great to do that. I am going to say I hear people do it a lot, and I will catch people out if I hear them doing it. And you think, oh, I thought we dealt with that concern you had, and yet here you are telling someone else, oh yeah, we did deal with it, but I was just sharing. Well, how about let's not, because it's not always helpful. So nurture your chimp, exercise your chimp, box your chimp. Next thing, feed your chimp. Distraction or reward. Often, if you do when I've done this, which emotionally I really don't want to do, and my chimp is having a right old Barney about the fact that it's going to do it, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to watch a TV program that I like. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to rest, relax, go for a run, whatever those things are that calm you down and are a treat for you. That can get us through what we think of as being the ugly jobs. And All of those ways are ways of managing, not changing your chimp. The traits of your chimp. How do I know if I'm reacting and it's my chimp reacting or if it's my human reacting? They jump to opinions. They think in black and white. They're paranoid. They're catastrophic. Oh no, you'll never guess what's happened. You'll never guess what someone said. All of those feelings are irrational, emotive. The chimp forms that opinion without evidence. Then they go around and find all the evidence to back it up. If you catch yourself doing it, recognize it's your chimp. And now what you have to do is sort out truth from feeling. I'm feeling like this, but the truth is that hasn't happened yet. Chimps want guarantees. And that's not always possible. Chimps hate uncertainty. So it's going to get your chimp all riled up. If it's uncertainty, oh, I'm not sure if you're teaching that next year or not. I'm not sure if you've got that class next year. I'm not sure if you're going to have to take on a new class. Your chimp is all riled up about that. But your human has to come in and say, it's fine. I can deal with anything. My human can deal with anything. I just have to be rational and calm and make my chimp feel safe. If you're an irritable person, irritability he describes as being unaddressed issues that actually you start needing to bring these to the surface to say, I might need to work through why that annoys me so much or why you annoy me so much, because there's obviously something going on. We haven't talked very much about the computer. It's the storage space, and your chimp and your human dip into it every time there's a decision to be made. But your chimp gets there first and it looks for the information that it wants to have. In that computer, he talks about constructive, helpful, automatic behavior, autopilots, he calls them. He then says that we also have some gremlins. They're unhelpful. They're destructive, automatic behaviors that can be removed, but you have to actually think, no, I'm not going to roll my eyes when that next person speaks just because they annoy me. I'm actually going to step in and control that behavior. So you can remove gremlins. Goblins, on the other hand, are much, much trickier. They're unhelpful, they're destructive, they're resistant to being removed, and they've often been established during childhood. Now, this brings us back to what's this got to do with school? The purpose of this GFM talk isn't for you to rush into your classroom and tell all your children that their chimps are taking over the world, because this is not an excuse model. This is not a you sort out yours and then I'll sort out mine. This is all on you. Start where you are. If you know that you are the shouter, you are the hot-headed, you are the quick to react, you are the sulker, all of these things, you are the person that acts and reacts on strong emotion, then I really suggest that you engage with the training and have a look at the book or listen to the podcast of that Diary of CEO, because it's fascinating what he goes into. Children in your class with a provoked chimp won't react how you want them to. And that's why it's important to give them time, let them calm down, don't make them center of attention, walk away, get on with something else, and come back once you've reassured their chimp that it's safe and that you're reasonable. The same, of course, has to be said for parents. If we're ringing or talking to parents, they're defending their children. Of course they are. Of course they want their children to be right. Otherwise, their chimp is getting all emotional about the fact that this might be a reflection on them and they don't want that. So somehow you need to listen, reassure, calm their chimp, even though you can't manage it. Definitely don't let it evoke yours. Your human can think they're reacting like this because of that. I'm going to be calm and I'm going to wait and I'm going to reassure. I'm going to be clear. I'm not going to be emotive in my language because I know that stirs a pot, which is evoking somebody else's chimp. Give your human time to react, deal with their gremlins or their goblins, but you have to recognize your own chimp first. that gives you a taster of what the chimp paradox is all about. And in the podcast, he talks about his next book, which is A Pathway Through the Jungle, I believe it's called. And it works through his 8 workshops to deal with your own chimp in a way that's way beyond the classroom, but I know will help. So if you find that interesting, or today's talk you have found something which you can relate to, of course you can talk to me or other people in the GFM that have been involved in this training, but read the book, listen to the podcast, and have a look at the next book. Thank you ever so much for listening today.